Professions for Women is an abbreviated version of the speech Virginia Woolf delivered before a branch of the National Society for Women's Service on January 21, 1931. It was published posthumously in The Death of the Moth and Other Essays. On the day before the speech, she wrote in her diary, "I have this moment, while having my bath, conceived an entire new book, a sequel to A Room of One's Own, about the sexual life of women, to be called Professions for Women, perhaps. Lord, how exciting!" More than a year and a half later, on October 11, 1932, Virginia Woolf began to write her new book, The Pargeters, an essay based upon a paper read to the London National Society for Women's Service. The Pargeters evolved into The Years and was published in 1937. The book that eventually did become the sequel to A Room of One's Own was The Three Guineas, and its first working title was Professions for Women. The essay printed here concentrates on that Victorian phantom known as the angel in the house, borrowed from Coventry Patmore's poem celebrating domestic bliss, that selfless, sacrificial woman in the 19th century whose sole purpose in life was to soothe, to flatter, and to comfort the male half of the world's population. Killing the angel in the house, wrote Virginia Woolf, was part of the occupation of a woman writer. That has proved to be a prophetic statement for today, not only in the domain of letters, but in the entire professional world. Women are still engaged in that deadly contest in their struggle for social and economic equality. Mitchell A. Leska. When your secretary invited me to come here, she told me that your society is concerned with the employment of women, and she suggested that I might tell you something about my own professional experiences. It is true I am a woman. It is true I am employed. But what professional experiences have I had? It is difficult to say. My profession is literature, and in that profession there are fewer experiences for women than in any other, with the exception of the stage. Fewer, I mean, that are peculiar to women. For the road was cut many years ago, by Fanny Burney, by Aphra Behn, by Harriet Martineau, by Jane Austen, by George Eliot, many famous women, and many more unknown and forgotten have been before me, making the path smooth and regulating my steps. Thus, when I came to write, there were very few material obstacles in my way. Writing was a reputable and harmless occupation. The family peace was not broken by the scratching of a pen. No demand was made upon the family purse. For 10 and 6 pence one can buy paper enough to write all the plays of Shakespeare, if one has a mind that way. Pianos and models, Paris, Vienna, Berlin, masters and mistresses, are not needed by a writer. The cheapness of writing paper is, of course, the reason why women have succeeded as writers before they have succeeded in other professions. But to tell you my story, it is a simple one. You have only got to figure to yourselves a girl in a bedroom with a pen in her hand. She had only to move that pen from left to right, from 10 o'clock to 1. Then it occurred to her to do what is simple and cheap enough after all, to slip a few of those pages into an envelope, fix a penny stamp in the corner, and drop the envelope into the red box at the corner. It was thus that I became a journalist, and my effort was rewarded on the first day of the following month, a very glorious day it was for me, by a letter from an editor containing a cheque for £1 10 shillings and 6 pence. But to show you how little I deserve to be called a professional woman, how little I know of the struggles and difficulties of such lives, I have to admit that instead of spending that sum upon bread and butter, rent, shoes, and stockings or butcher's bills, I went out and bought a cat, a beautiful cat, a Persian cat, which very soon involved me in bitter disputes with my neighbors. What could be easier than to write articles and to buy Persian cats with the profits? But wait a moment. Articles have to be about something. Mine, I seem to remember, was about a novel by a famous man, and while I was writing this review, I discovered that if I were going to review books, I should need to do battle with a certain phantom. And the phantom was a woman. And when I came to know her better, I called her after the heroine of a famous poem, The Angel in the House. It was she who used to come between me and my paper when I was writing reviews. It was she who bothered me and wasted my time and so tormented me that at last I killed her. You who come of a younger and happier generation may not have heard of her. You may not know what I mean by the angel in the house. I will describe her as shortly as I can. She was intensely sympathetic. She was immensely charming. She was utterly unselfish. She excelled in the difficult arts of family life. She sacrificed herself daily. If there was chicken, she took the leg. If there was a draught, she sat in it. In short, she was so constituted that she never had a mind of her or a wish of her own, but she preferred to sympathize always with the minds and wishes of others. Above all, I need not say it, she was pure. Her purity was supposed to be her chief beauty, her bliss, her great grace. In those days, the last of Queen Victoria, every house had its queen. And when I came to write, I encountered her with the very first words. The shadow of her wings fell on my page. I heard the rustling of her skirts in the room. Directly, that is to say, I took my pen in my hand to review that novel by a famous man, she slipped behind me and whispered, "My dear, you are a young woman. You are writing about a book that has been written by a man. Be sympathetic, be tender, flatter, deceive, use all the arts and wiles of our sex. Never let anybody guess that you have a mind of your own. Above all, be pure." And she made as if to guide my pen. I now record the one act for which I take some credit to myself, though the credit rightly belongs to some excellent ancestors of mine who left me a certain sum of money, which I would say £500 a year, so that it was not necessary for me to depend solely on my charm for my living. I turned upon her and caught her by the throat. I did my best to kill her. My excuse, if I were to be had up in a court of law, would be that I acted in self-defense. Had I not killed her, she would have killed me. She would have plucked the heart out of my writing. For as I found, directly I put my pen to paper, you cannot review even a novel without having a mind of your own, without expressing what you think to be the truth about human relations, morality, sex, and all these questions, according to the angel of the house, cannot be dealt with freely and openly by women. They must charm, they must conciliate, they must, to put it bluntly, tell lies if they are to succeed. Thus, whenever I felt the shadow of her wing or the radiance of her halo upon my page, I took up the inkpot and flung it at her. She died hard. Her fictitious nature was of great assistance to her. It is far harder to kill a phantom than a reality. She was always creeping back when I thought I had dispatched her. Though I flatter myself that I killed her in the end, the struggle was severe. It took much time that had better been spent upon learning Greek grammar, or in roaming the world in search of adventures. But it was a real experience. It was an experience that was bound to befall all women writers at that time. Killing the angel of the house was part of the occupation of a woman writer. But to continue my story, the angel was dead. What then remained? You may say that what remained was a simple and common object, a young woman in a bedroom with an inkpot. In other words, now that she had rid herself of falsehood, that young woman had only to be herself. Ah, but what is herself? I mean, what is a woman? I assure you I do not know. I do not believe that you know. I do not believe that anybody can know until she has expressed herself in all the arts and professions open to human skill. That indeed is one of the reasons why I have come here out of respect for you, who are in process of showing us by your experiments what a woman is, and who are in process of providing us by your failures and successes with that extremely important piece of information.